Hi, so here's a little showcase of all the issues that I found in the new Fatal Frame II Remake demo that just came out, simply by checking the settings for more than 5 minutes. First off, HDR settings are broken. Apart from using arbitrary numbers instead of nits, I've noticed that the maximum brightness slider does absolutely nothing. This video is in HDR, so if you have an HDR monitor you should see some changes, especially when I take it all the way to 0, nothing happens. Next off, I wanted to bring attention to the fact that this game forces you to use either DLSS or FSR3 with no option to turn them off at all. It does let you set the native resolution to 100%, effectively doing DLAA or FSR anti-aliasing, but yeah, it just doesn't let you disable that, and those things do have some performance penalties, you know what I mean? Next off, this game only has a maximum FPS limit of 60 FPS, and it also has a 30 FPS lock in cutscenes. There is also some optimization issues, or at least in some of the graphic settings, there is a single setting that, switching from medium to high, has a 20% performance impact on my 4080 Super at 4K DLAA. So as you can see in the top left corner, I have present mode and I'm running around 52 FPS on the main menu. Switching volumetric clouds from high to standard, I go to the maximum limit of 60 FPS, and GPU from 100% utilization to around 89. That is a lot of performance impact for a single setting. Moving on, we have the biggest issue, I think, because this straight up just doesn't work. As you can see, the game has motion blur, but it does let you choose between toggling overall game motion blur and camera obscura motion blur. Personally, I don't like motion blur. Many people don't like motion blur, and that's fine, and that's why there's a toggle. But the camera obscura motion blur, at least in the original games, had a very strong effect. Some people might not like it, but it is an artistic choice, right? It is a choice for the style of the game and the gameplay. So I wanted to disable overall motion blur, but leave the camera obscura one on, and I was like, okay, this is cool that they did this option. Doesn't work. So as you can see, if I disable normal motion blur and keep camera obscura motion blur on, and I go back and open the settings again and I check, both stay on. I tried a couple of times, same thing. If I disable just camera obscura motion blur, I'll go back and check again, both types of motion blur are disabled. And if I try to enable normal motion blur while camera obscura is off, doesn't do anything. So effectively, the motion blur toggle does nothing, and the camera obscura motion blur is a global motion blur setting. That is extremely funny to me, and we know this is gonna be in the final game, because this is only 6 days away. The final build is done. This demo is based on the final build, let's be honest. Anyway, moving on. Next up, we have another issue that is mislabeling of a setting. So in audio output settings, you can choose between surround, stereo, mono, and stereophonic. Now, if you think about it for more than like 1 second, you realize that stereo is an abbreviation of stereophonic. So essentially, this text is saying it has 2 stereo settings, which makes no sense. Now, if you think about it for more than 1 second, you think, okay, so one must be stereo. And stereophonic sounds a bit fancier, probably means spatial audio, right? If you check the Japanese text, that's exactly what it means. The term used in Japanese is rittai onkyo. If you check on Google, you will find out it was basically a term coined back when stereo was starting to become a thing. It basically means that audio comes from different places, and on the current era where stereo is the default and Japan uses the katakana for stereo, this term essentially means spatial audio, but machine translation translates this as stereophonic. Actually stereophonic, not even stereo, like stereophonic. So this is basically telling us that the localization of this game is gonna be horrible in English probably, but checking the other languages, all European languages except Spanish, because probably Spanish used the English text and not the Japanese one, all of the other languages used 3D audio or spatial audio for that setting. I don't really know any Chinese or Korean, but for what I could Google, they also are using terms that just searching them automatically shows you spatial or 3D audio results, so I imagine they might be accurate. English, as usual, is getting a shit as translation that probably is from machine translation. I don't want to think about it too much. This is depressing. Anyway, just so you know. So the next issue has to do with button prompts being incorrect, but it's deeper than you might think. On DualSense, while in a cutscene, button prompts show up telling you that if you press the touchpad, you can pause the cutscene, and if you press options, you can skip it. Now, by default, that is not entirely accurate. If you press the left half of the touchpad, it does pause the cutscene, but if you press the right half of the touchpad, it acts as if you were pressing the options button and skips the cutscene. Now you might think, why would it be like this? So I checked, this game has native DualSense support and it has like haptic feedback and all that cool stuff, but for some reason they have set the Steam game options to override the user's Steam input options. Basically it forces Steam input to be enabled for PlayStation controllers. Even if you have it disabled in your Steam settings, it will still override it. You need to disable it on a per game basis. You have to enter the Frame II Remake settings and disable Steam input. If you do that, now, as you can see, the touchpad, doesn't matter where you press it, it will pause the game as the prompt says it will. By forcing Steam input and doing whatever the hell they're doing with it, they're essentially breaking this. Not surprised to see that, because I see that all the time, and that's why I always disable Steam input, because like, unless I see the game not recognize my controller with Steam input disabled, I will not enable it, and you should do it too, and developers should think for a second, like, does our game have native support? Yes, then we don't need Steam input, because we have native support, but they don't think about these things apparently. Hope this was helpful for someone. Hope Team Ninja fixes these things at some point. Maybe if we're very lucky by launch date of the actual game or a day one patch. We'll see. I don't think they're gonna care. We'll see. Anyway, that's all. Bye.